It's been a great season for Georgia,
Mm-hmm.
but that doesn't mean there haven't been bumps along the way. We got a lot of problems with you people. We're going to tell you about them next on the Locked On Bulldogs podcast.
You are Locked On Bulldogs, your daily podcast on the Georgia Bulldogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Bulldogs, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time, GameTime.co. More on them in a moment. Today, we are talking, by the way, thank you for the everyday listeners that are here. Thank you for the first listeners, the everydayers, and the loyal third segment listeners that are always with us. You guys are the best. We're doing this podcast for you guys, with you guys. All of you who want to see us down in New Orleans for the Sugar Bowl, we'll be hanging out with you.
You think we're out here recording on the week of Christmas just for our own health and wellness? No.
I'll tell you this. No. Today, here's what you need to do today. You need to grab a metal pole.
Yeah.
Your wrestling partner for feats of strength.
Yep.
And just the sassiest, angriest voice that you have in you. Because we got Festivus for the rest of us, and we are airing grievances. The year's been great for Georgia.
It has been. We like to keep it positive generally on this podcast, Clint.
Yes, this is what we're saying. We have fantastic things. We're all there, but sometimes we did this. This podcast started with a cathartic dumping at the hands of Alabama that really propelled us and really gave you a taste of our type of humor and our personalities. We were endeared to each other on that way long ago. The OGs know. We're going to continue that today by telling you all the grievances we have with a number of people this year, and some of them will be Georgia players, some of them will be Georgia coaches, some of them will be other teams in the SEC, some of them will be just teams in general or college football in general. We're going to go through it. Add your own grievances. You let us know, which you do every single time we record, by the way. The comment sections is full of your grievances. But now we welcome...
Most of those grievances are with us.
Yeah.
That's fine too.
Which is totally fine.
That's where we want to go. That's fine.
Yes. So let's begin the Festivus for the rest of us. The opening ceremonies have concluded. The metal pole is erected. The feats of strength are before us.
There's like 20% of the listeners that actually know what in the world we're talking about right now.
Go look it up.
We're gonna talk about things that have bothered us about this Georgia football team or about this Georgia football season. That's all you really need to know. All right. Let's jump in here, Clint. My first grievance is with the offensive play calling. I'm going to start there. I'm going to start where other people are hoping maybe that I end.
When people saw this headline come over on the YouTube and on the audio section, and they said, we have a lot of problems, we're going to air them. Everybody was begging for this to be the first out of the gate, Daniel. So you've given the people what they want.
I'm nothing if not a man of the people. We have long since been defenders of Mike Bobo on this podcast, and that doesn't necessarily need to change. We still are pro Mike Bobo. I think he's done some good things this year. I think he's made lemonade out of some lemons often this year. Okay, but that's not what this segment is about.
No.
There have been situations and moments in which it feels like Georgia is dead set to do something this year that we are clearly not capable of doing. All right. Long stretches of the season where what's the number one issue that this team faces? It is Carson Beck's decision making. That's been a huge source of problem for this Georgia offense. And yet we're putting Carson Beck back there in 5 wide receiver sets, asking him to read the field and make decisions. And it led to a stretch where, Beck's confidence was in the toilet and he's throwing interceptions left and right, hand over fist.
Yep.
I don't know that Mike Bobo has put this Georgia offense. We have seen in years past, not just from Todd Monken, but also from Mike Bobo last year, I would say. We have seen in years past this Georgia offense. It's really predicated on one thing, and that is finding a way to get the ball into the hands of the best players on the team.
There it is.
Georgia has not done that this year. Georgia has consistently failed to do that this year.
Huge.
And a lot of it, Clint, I'm going to bring it back to not just the play calling, but the decision making of the offensive staff, and I'm going to include in decision making who's on the field and who's not on the field. I think we have seen way too much of certain players whose names might come up later in the airing of grievances. But we've seen way too much of certain players and not nearly enough of some others. Long stretches of the season, I've been I called for Anthony Evans to get more playing time. He did against Mississippi State, and he was electric. I know there's been some injury concerns, but where has the consistent usage been for some of these guys? We continue to go back to the well, it seems like, with guys that have just let us down time after time. So Mike Bobo's done some great things this year, but he's also, I got some issues with the way that this offensive staff has managed this season.
Look, I can say two things are true at the same time. We're famous for saying so. And this is what's true about Mike Bobo. I actually am fine with Mike Bobo as our offensive coordinator. And hold on, all of you shouting at me right now. If you wanted to make a case to fire Mike Bobo on the single thing that he allowed Arian Smith to continue playing in this offense, I would also be okay with you making that defense, and I may agree with you. It is a fireable offense that he allowed Arian Smith to be the primary receiving threat for us on the outside all year long without benching him and saying, guess what? No more. Now, Arian Smith, conversely, has saved our season a number of times by falling on fumbles and blocking. And I'm not exaggerating.
He is a football player on the outside, Clint.
That's all that he is. And so, yes, the airing of grievances starts there. Daniel, to me, Mike Bobo, I think of one play that Bobo has done, and it came to fruition a couple of games ago. When we get down in the red zone and we do toss into the boundary, pulling a couple of guys, power toss into the boundary, and we did it 4 times leading up to just a couple weeks ago. And then off of that, Mike Bobo did a play action of the tight end, got open, got huge yards on the red zone. I think it was to a score as well. Mike Bobo is kind of like Kirby Smart. Do you remember that SEC game in which we played LSU 2019?
I do remember that game.
It was brutal. It was
Wish
awful.
I didn't remember that game.
I wish I didn't remember it either, Daniel. Do you remember that Kirby Smart came out with a defense in which we just wanted to stop Edwards-Helaire? He thought if we stop Edwards-Helaire, we're going to be fine. And we played a defense that we hadn't played all year.
Yeah.
With an Edwards-Helaire spy the entire game. Was that Lewis Seen? Who played linebacker that game?
Something probably. I feel like it was probably Lewis.
I think so. Where he just was basically like a rover, 7.5 yards past line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
Kirby Smart was outsmarted by himself in that game. We got boat raced against a insanely talented team, but we probably could have not been boat raced as much if we had played normal defense. Mike Bobo outsmarts himself at times because you can do into the boundary power toss every single time to get it on film and to get people thinking I got your tendencies. And then you go, I'm going to outsmart him here. Or you can get guys on the field that contribute really well and get them in positions to do their job. That's what you could do as well. So
interesting.
My grievance with Mike
you're saying if your 3 best receiving options on the roster are all tight ends, you could play them all at the same time because they're your 3 best receiving options.
What if you set one on the slot? What if you
just put Lawson Lucky there on the outside?
What if you set one offset and then the other one on the opposite side of formation on the line of scrimmage, put them in motion, do a play
legal.
action?
That's legal.
All of which I just described as a normal offensive system.
Sure.
Just like that, Daniel. That's exactly what I'm talking about. We're going to come back after this. We're going to air some more grievances we have with the Georgia football team after this. This is FanDuel. FanDuel.com.
How's that FanDuel account looking, Clint?
It's looking great so far, Daniel. We are heading into the Sugar Bowl looking fantastic. Bowl season is upon us. We're going to give out some more bowl picks. Maybe even on Friday, we might give out some because bowls are happening all the time, Daniel. We got bowls for days.
That's right.
There's
a lot of things, a lot of illegitimate bowls out there.
We will call you out. Not illegitimate is Lamar Jackson playing with Todd Monken as his offensive coordinator. And if
how's
you
that
don't
going
think
for him?
it's going quite well. If you had that MVP ticket preseason, it's looking really great right now. And FanDuel is a place that had that happen. Right now, you make a $5 bet, you win that $5 bet, you get $250 in bonus bets straight to your account. $250 straight to your account in bonus bets for a $5 wager that wins. FanDuel.com, the official sports book of Locked On Bulldogs and Locked On Podcasts everywhere. Get over there right now. Make every moment more. The airing of grievances continues, Daniel.
Yeah.
And I'm going to air my grievance with a coach that will likely not be. We hit the offensive coordinator. I think it's only
people
fair
not ready. People are not ready, Clint.
I think it's only fair we go to the other side of the ball.
No, they're not ready.
And I'm going to call two guys out. Kirby Smart is the best coach in college football.
Okay.
Hands down. It's not particularly close.
Okay.
And yet he and Glenn Schumann have taken a defense with talent and have made them somehow inexplicably anti-Georgian in their entire philosophy.
Yeah.
I'm okay with guys being out of position because sometimes an offensive coordinator can be cooking and could be up in his bag and he could be just late and you just go tip of the cap. That was a dang good job. You got me. You got me fading one side and you came inside with it. Got me guessing here. Good on you. Caught me in a blitz and you threw a screen right over the side. Okay.
Yep.
The thing that's inexcusable to me to this day that I just will never understand. We give up 60 yards to Texas combined rushing in both games.
I'm sorry. 2 games?
2 games against what I'm told, what I just saw another fraudulent national media put out, the highest percentage chance to win the college football championship. Texas at 34% or something like that.
Let me tell you this.
Go ahead.
Texas fans pulling like heck for Notre Dame. I promise you that. I promise you Texas fans don't want another bite at the apple because the apple's poisoned and you can't eat it.
Kirby Smart has Steve Sarkisian stuffed in a locker permanently. There's no other way to say this. Texas, what we were to Nick Saban, I'll just say it.
Yeah, sure.
Steve Sarkisian is to Kirby Smart in Georgia, and there's no way around it. So yeah, you are cheering for Notre Dame in a very, very hard way. But Daniel, we turned a defense that you can count on it being tough in the trenches.
Yeah.
Tough up the middle.
You thought you could count on it.
We couldn't this year. Now, I have a grievance with this because when all else fails, when the bullets aren't flying, when the speed isn't there, when even we're a little lackluster coming out of the gates because it's not an exciting game, the thing I've counted on for Georgia for years has been a stout. We're going to take pride in our defense not letting you in the end zone. Do you remember how many times Richard LeCount, how many times Nakobe Dean, Roquan Smith, how many times those guys were mad as all get out when they were yanked in the fourth and we gave up a touchdown because it was somebody's Super Bowl to score a touchdown or to just kick a field goal and get points on the board against us. Yeah. And they were furious.
Didn't like it.
This year, that fire has not been there. And that's my biggest grievance. Again, I know talent is elsewhere. Just like this passing threat, we have Brock Bowers, Ladd McConkey in the NFL. Just like this defense, we had Jalen Carter, who, by the way, has turned into the best defensive lineman. The man pointed to a guard and said, he's going to pull right now. I'll just quickly I'm a massive human that will quickly split it and fumble, cause a fumble in the backfield. Nakobe Dean. I mean, the list goes on and on of guys that we've lost off this team, but there's a spirit. Again, defense is like rebounding in basketball. It's effort.
You want it.
Passion. You want it. This team hasn't had it. And that's my big, because I've always been able to count on that. And this is the first year where I question it. And we have times where Texas, we show up. And against Georgia Tech, we don't. And Kirby has to call a timeout every overtime on defense to get the guys set up and ready to go and get them. And that's my first grievance, Daniel.
It's soft. I mean, just if we could just summarize it in one single word, it would be that this defense has been, and by all accounts, seemingly will continue to be soft. It starts up the middle.
Yeah.
It, the defense has done some incredible things at times this year. You mentioned it against Texas. We saw how that Texas run game, Clint, got cooking against Clemson. 297 yards they rushed for against Clemson, and we absolutely shut them down. But against Kentucky, against Georgia Tech, against Ole Miss, this team vanished. The first half against Alabama. And that's like a little mini grievance I'm going to air is the first half preparedness of this team. I think you got to put it on the coaching staff. Like, this team clearly has first half issues. Clint clearly has massive opening script issues. And that goes to Glenn Schumann. It goes to Kirby Smart. It goes to Mike Bobo. This team has not been able to get it done in the first half all year. They have looked, Kirby said it. They've been outcoached often. Now, the adjustments that they made at halftime have been second to none. This team is resilient. This team has got a lot of great qualities. But again, if we're airing grievances, the first half, Clint, has been absolutely abysmal for this Georgia team. We've got more grievances to air, and we will be back to do so right after these.
And these are, in fact, Game Time. GameTime.co. Download the Game Time app. Daniel and I used them just this last week, as a matter of fact, because we were perusing through all the seats that are down there at Mercedes-Benz Superdome in New Orleans to go to the game that Georgia will be playing on New Year's Day against Notre Dame. Game Time is a place you get to see from your view, from your seat, what it is, what's going on, what the surrounding is like. Price points are fantastic. And right now you put that slider on over and it gives you all-in pricing, taxes, fees, everything included into it. You don't have to guess until checkout to see what the real cost is going to be. And this just in, they're the cheapest, best prices in the entire industry. All that backed with 110% guarantee. If your ticket is more, if you find it for cheaper somewhere else, if it's more on Game Time, they'll give you 110% of the difference. Get over there right now. GameTime.co. Put in promo code LOCKEDONCollege, $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's again, LOCKEDONCollege, $20 off your first purchase. GameTime.co. Get in the game.
Clint, we talked about some of the play calling. We talked about the defense being a little bit soft. We talked about the first half issues for this Georgia team. It's hardly the place to get on here and absolutely zero in on one guy, right? We have mentioned Arian Smith.
I have.
But the left tackle spot, Clint, we thought coming into this year that Ernest Green was going to be a first-team All-SEC, a potential first-round draft pick, an All-American candidate. I know there have been some injury concerns, but the play at left tackle this year has been worthy of some grievances being aired. Monroe Freeling has come in and solidified things a little bit, but even still, you don't love the depth seemingly that Georgia has on this offensive line. Now, we were able to withstand a significant Tate Ratledge injury, which he missed the bulk of the regular season, and you still feel pretty good. Even got, Bobo in there at, getting some reps at center. And so you feel good about both guard spots and really the center spot. But when you look at tackle for Georgia, what kind of a position are we in, Clint, where we're like, we would be devastated if Xavier Truss had to miss time? Like, absolutely. Coming into this season, if we're being honest, Clint, you were probably hoping that Xavier Truss was going to miss some time so that we could rotate in guys behind him.
What I thought was Monroe Freeling at right tackle is perfect because now I have two bookend tackles that will absolutely pave the way for Carson Beck on offense. And then, no. Oh, no. What happened was Truss has turned into a dependable, trustworthy right tackle.
Yeah, which is great. The grievance is there's nobody back there behind him. And
that's it.
It's a significant issue for Georgia the tackle spot in general. I think disappointment from what we've seen out of that unit. Disappointment on, in terms of guys like Ernest Green's development and just how they have or have not grown in over the course of the season. I think that has been a grievance to me that, gosh, it just caught me by surprise. You and I both thought this offensive line was going to be the absolute rock solid strength.
Yes.
And this team flat out can't run the ball. So we're talking about the depth issues at tackle and the poor performance of the tackle, and everybody wants to, everybody's ready to anoint Tate Ratledge as the best offensive lineman in the history of college football. He gets a ton of praise, which he does a lot of good things for this team. But he also contributes to the worst rushing attack in the SEC. That's his unit. So
he's responsible for being the mauler.
All 5 of these guys.
Point of contact.
Yeah.
Yes. 100% takes blame.
So Dylan Fairchild,
sure.
Jared Wilson,
sure.
Tate Ratledge.
Sure.
If you ask any Georgia fan, they'll be like, those guys have played great this season. I don't disagree necessarily. Someone talked to me about the running game and how we can't seemingly create any space or consistently move the football on the ground. The Kirby Death March has been an absolute distant memory for this Georgia team. So couple grievances.
I'm going to, if you guys don't understand kind of Daniel and I's, we like to divide some things, and it just works out that our preferences on a few things helps divide that. Daniel's taking a lot of the offensive side of the ball. I'm going to take a lot of the defensive side of the ball, because Malachi Starks, my grievance I have with you is this.
Oh boy.
You're a fine player. You're a good
firing
player.
Up the Twitter machine.
I am firing up the Twitter machine. Let's go. Malachi, I started this season. Again, let the record state, I am glad you're on this team. You're a good player. You're
a very good player.
You are a very good player.
Thank you.
I'm happy you're here.
That's right.
If Daniel and I have these jersey guys, we call them jersey guys. If you were to own a jersey, what jersey would you have? Mine has been Roquan Smith for ever since he started day one and UCLA fax machine debacle happened. I have just loved Roquan. I came into the season thinking to myself, I may have to swap out my jersey to Malachi Starks, because he was everything I wanted in a safety. He was everything that I hoped for in a safety. Christopher Smith, the Smith brothers back there, Tyke and him were some of the best safety combinations we've ever had at Georgia.
Just to clarify, which Smith brothers were you talking about? Not the podcasting Smith brothers. No. I just want to make sure we all understand. They are great for a lot of things. I would not trust them covering anything on a football field. And I love you, Smith brothers. Bring me a water and then we'll talk.
You can't even do that, Daniel.
You had one job. You had one job.
Malachi, I was hoping that you would unseat my favorite defensive player ever at Georgia. And that's now shame on me. I had
shame on you.
Bar.
There you go.
That's on me.
That's a grievance that we all have with you, Clint.
Look, lots of people have grievances with me because I can't deliver, and it's fine. I have horrible takes. Ohioans have been all over me for my prediction on SEC squad, saying that Tennessee was going to roll and that Will Howard is fraudulent. I'm here to tell you I was wrong about one of those things.
Whoops. Well, Will Howard was by far the best quarterback in that game. And not that he played the best. He is the best quarterback who played in that game by a mile.
I see no lie.
That doesn't negate what he said earlier, because if you take two cars and one of them only goes 5 miles an hour and the other one has no wheels or engine, then one of the cars is still the best car. You understand? What? All right.
You want a car that turns over or a car that doesn't? That's all we're saying right now. Yeah. Will Howard is going to be exposed. Just hang in they're Ohioans, whatever you guys are called. Just deplorable people.
By Texas, the most likely team to win the national championship.
Oh my gosh, I just can't. Oregon's going to stomp both y'all. Oregon's going to take care of business. Ooh, maybe. Okay, we'll get back to that later. Look, Malachi, I wanted you to be the best safety we ever had. And that's high praise, because we've had bunches of them.
Yeah.
But man, I'm sad it didn't happen. I still have a grievance about it. And so there it is. I love you though. You're a great part of this team.
Let's end this episode like this, Clint, because I'm not going to break any news here. This is one of the least complete Georgia teams that we have seen in the last 5-6 years, right? Like I'm not trying to disparage this team in any way. I'm more so making a statement about the overall level of quality that we have gotten used to. Success fatigue is a very real thing.
It's real.
And this team, I would say consistently in various ways, has failed to live up to the Georgia standard. We are SEC champion, number 2 seed in the college football playoff.
When you and I thought that a home playoff game was out of the question.
3 games away from a win over Notre Dame,
and
Penn State,
okay,
and Texas,
yeah,
for the national championship. Guys, it is a very good problem to have.
Yeah,
to have issues with a team and be able to truthfully speak about those issues and not feel the need to create a graphic about how Arian Smith is actually one of the best wide receivers to ever play at Georgia. Dear Lord.
Stop.
Honestly, you can't be watching football. You can't be watching football. You're busy making graphics. I understand.
Daniel and I will need friends in New Orleans to tell us when to go back to the hotel. Okay? Like, you need a friend right now in your life to tell you to put down the graphic generator.
Put it down. Put it down. We can speak about these things and still acknowledge this Georgia team's got more heart and more resiliency than I've ever seen from a Georgia football team. This Georgia team has got a will to win. This Georgia team has got a belief in itself. This Georgia team is still one of the best in all of college football, if not the best in all of college football. And yet we've seen a lot of problems with them. That's a good problem to have if you're a Georgia fan. We'll be back later talking about Notre Dame. We'll be breaking down that. We'll be talking about bowl games coming up next week. We'll have bowl locks for you. We got a lot in store. Clint and I will be on the road to New Orleans. We'll be doing some live shows in New Orleans. We'll be doing a lot. We'll be doing some recording down there. And so stay tuned. Make sure you're subscribed, and we will see you guys next time.
We'll see you guys then. Just so you guys know, just Riley Mills being out for Notre Dame, massive.
Might want to talk about that on the next show, Clint. We'll bring it up.
We'll bring it up.